I met a gypsy.
Unfortunately, the reason why they no longer are the biggest dog is because they're exhausted.
Yeah.
No matter what scenario you want to give me, if you put all emotions aside and all opinions aside, and you just look at that, if you look at the calendar and the hierarchy, because if you look at it, the greatest of all times, because I think they all are in the same category, and you've done a great job on your show talking about, it's hard to say James is better than Ricky, Ricky's better than James is better than Chad. They're all just beasts.
Yeah.
They're just all beasts.
And they got their own different way.
Yeah, you've got McGrath, who you just had on. 72, maybe, Jet does beat it. But, for all intents and purposes, the best of the best in history have all trained by themselves. All the way up to and including Tomac right now, that nobody seems to be talking about these last couple of years, and yet he's won the most.
Yeah.
So if you're going to argue with me that the group environment works so well, then how come if you look at the lion's share of championships, they've all come by training by yourself? Because it would go Ricky, then it would go the generation of Chad and James, because those two to me were, I guess all three of those would be about synonymous.
Yeah. Then
you look at the transition over to Eli, he's out there doing it by himself. Him, a heart rate monitor, stopwatch, and his dad.
Yeah.
And so, you look at like last summer, look at Star Yamaha. They didn't have a 250 rider out there outdoors all season long. They had to put Chisholm in because there was no representation on the track. How does that not send a red flag up?
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder, like with the whole Star thing.
Because Jay Coop was the man at Star until what?
Until Degan was the man.
No, until he got sick.
Oh, yeah.
He got sick and he got hurt. Because remember last summer, he jacked that little wrist bone up, going up that, just a weird little thing. But I mean, how can you be that fragile? And I know these guys are hauling the mail, but I look at some of the diggers look at Bradshaw taking out Matasevich. I mean, remember that one, obviously, because Paris was just this weekend, when he ghost rode and just freaking plastered Matasevich up against the wall. They walked away from it.
Yeah.
And, I hate it like when Faulkner nose picked through the whoops and he hit that left-hander. I was like, man, it just didn't seem like, and again, I'm not saying that you and I could have gotten away from that.
Yeah.
I just compare the history, and I know the bikes are faster and stuff like that, but I still have to go off of the parameters of what's different.
Yeah.
When you look at Jay Coop, he no disrespect to Degan, the guy just completely blew everybody's mind this last year, but Jay Coop made it easier for Degan to become the top guy because Degan's the freshest.
Yeah, yeah.
Degan was racing future. I mean, my goodness, Degan was racing Mini O's last year this week.
Yeah, that's crazy.
As we sit right now, Mini O's is going on right now.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and again, I have mad respect for Brian Degan. I felt like he did a great job. In fact, he mentioned it in your interview with you. And again, every one of your shows, I have my team members listen to. It's part of their homework before we do our weekly calls.
Poor bastards.
Seriously, no, it's good because, like I say to them, is I always want you to realize everything I share with you is happening in real world. If you saw my
social, it's like good to get the perspective of people actually.
Well, especially when it's their heroes, right?
Yeah,
Like I always, whenever I do a performance camp, I'm like, how many of you guys set your SAG today? Very rarely will you get somebody who raises their hand unless they're a pro.
Just head to Motorsport and get that SAG tool, mate. That's
literally
the easiest way. Just get it there, put it on
Boom.
Your bars.
And so yesterday I took a picture of it because there's Roxon. He's getting ready to go out and he pumps, stands up, and guy pulls out
Yeah.
And I'm like, we've talked about this, about so many guys are chasing suspension setup and you don't have a relationship with a suspension specialist and you don't even set your own SAG. You have a $10,000 A kit and you didn't even set SAG in the back. That shit's useless.
Can I tell you a rule of mine that like this is kind of, it just speaks to that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, why focus on the 1% when you haven't done the 99?
Amen.
And that's just so across life.
Yeah.
And
step over $1 to pick up a penny. That's what I always say.
Yeah. And it's so true. Like, and if you're in like anything that you're doing, it's just like, are you doing the 99%?
Yep.
And I have to check myself all the time because I'll be almost like 5 steps ahead of myself in where, like the podcast and this. I got this. I got this plan. But then it's like, dude, you're cooking it. You haven't even done these ads. You haven't. It's like the 99% isn't done, and it's like buying a kit suspension, but you don't check the SAG.
That's
it's
right.
like you've done this like final 1%.
Yep.
Or just that's what for me with the World Vets thing this year is like my only goal was just I wanted to be fit enough to do all the races and enjoy the race. Like I know I was going to get tired. I know lap times are going to drop. Like I'm not a professional.
Yep.
But in the past when I would race, just couldn't race. Like when I did Manji those 2 years, like it was dangerous for me to be out there. Like I was out there because we were filming, not because I was fucking ready. And I was like, that's what I don't want. So that then becomes doing the 99%. And like when I got here, I struggled for ages to get a bike. I actually thought I'd be able to get a bike really easily, but turns out I'm not big enough.
Oh, wow.
But then, so anyway, my friend Steve, he has an XCF 350, not even a motocross bike.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck it. Let's go.
Yep.
And then when I couldn't ride the big track at Parla because the suspension was too soft, like with the Enduro. So what did I do? I just did motos on the vet track. And it was like, I wanted to just, for the first time, do the 99% and not stress the 1%. Not stress all of the little bullshit that kind of derails you.
Yeah.
And you focus on because it's like glittery and shiny.
Yep.
It's like, no, just do the 99%.
Put in the work. Well, and that's what I loved about what Degan said is when he made the comment, I had Hayden on a skateboard, I had him on a pump track, I had him on a BMX track. He goes, was that the right way? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
And that to me sums it up because, I grew up in BMX, ironically race against Jeremy McGrath, right? So Jeremy brings buttering the backsides on the full throttle. Then you can add the knack and all the cool stuff that goes with it. And then even McGrath said, I just brought my BMX skills into moto, kind of caught some people off guard, which I think is what Jet's doing right now.
Yeah.
And so you look at when Brian, and that's what I said to, again, I'm going to kind of strike a nerve. I absolutely have a disdain when you have Kenny and you have Chase and you have Jet standing up in the whoops, and now every riding coach says that's the only way to ride. And everybody's online, this is the only way to ride, never sit, it's a waste of time, blah, 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 right? When we both know there's a time and a place for both, but because those three guys, they're all at the top and they're all making it look super easy, it makes no sense to sit down in any corner, which is absurd. And then I love when Degan came out and he says, I just have you asked him that question, he just kind of has his own riding style, a little bit of bulldog, a little bit of hanging it out there. And when Brian made that comment, we tried everything. And I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to find out. And then when he mentioned that he had set the bar really high and he was very respectful, but he was like, the bar wasn't as high as we thought it was, which I thought was interesting because like when I was working with AC, when you're already the pinnacle and you're the guy everyone's shooting for, we trained with Zach Freeberg. So our goal was always to try to be faster than Zach, even though Zach was on a 250. Because you have to keep that highly successful person still motivated for something, which goes full circle of, and you see this at a lot of the amateur facilities. The amateur facilities will market that they have one really fast kid. And if you look at history, usually that fast kid ends up being the piece that makes everyone else fast and he ends up going backwards.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like you said, he's the pinnacle. He's the one that everyone... So this guy moves from being the lead guy to being the one that everyone's chasing, and eventually the fatigue and the whole psychological platform changes.
Yeah.
You're no longer out there knowing that you can dominate. You just started to get physically and emotionally exhausted, that then you start to fear being chased.
Yeah.
And it's been at almost every facility.
We're excited to announce the launch of our new membership site, gypsytales.com, packed with exclusive content and perks that you won't find anywhere else. This is your chance to become a part of the Gypsy Gang. And as a special bonus, if you sign up to an annual membership, you'll be entered into the draw to win our custom-built TC125. Gypsy Gang.